It's January the 2nd. We'll get there. 2024. I'm going to be your host tonight. I'm Dana Durnford. I hope you're well. You can call in at 709-589-4406 if you're on the live show. That's the place to be. We get tons and tons of updates on Fukushima's earthquake. I'm sorry, Japan's earthquake. So normally we're covering Fukushima nuclear meltdowns. There's 4 of them. That's 2 reactors there out of the 4 that melted down. Reactor 3 to your left, reactor 4 to the right. That's what they look like today. They put covers over them and manipulated you in order to get you to believe that everything is safe. But every nuclear scientist on the planet, when they originally looked at these buildings, knew that the reactors were gone. They hid it away from you. The media spent 80 years manipulating you. And you should be concerned because these are not very far away. When you're talking about a 7 out of 7 scale, the Shindu scale, Japan scale, which is different in order to manipulate you. Because when they say it's like a 6, then you don't worry about an earthquake so much. But at a 7 scale, when you realize it's out of a 7 scale, you're talking about over a 9 point something, then you start to realize what they're up to. So we're worried that these fragile buildings have been shook and severely extended. There's over 200 aftershocks, by the way. And on an international scale, when I show you the footage, I'm pretty sure you're going to agree with me. This is a serious earthquake they had in Japan. So we're worried about these reactors collapsing and releasing huge plumes. I'll just introduce you to the reactors. By the way, that's the bottom framing for reactor 1, which also melted down. And that framing, that bottom piece, is actually this piece right there. And that piece right there is higher than the stump of reactor 3 and 4 if you stack them on top of each other. The official story is, though, that they didn't melt down, they didn't blow up, there was no releases. The official story is there's no releases. So we're going to talk about the current earthquake they got in Japan. But I want you to appreciate how big of a liar these people actually are and how long they've been doing it and how dangerous those particular lies are that they're talking about. That's reactor 1 over there and reactor 3 blowing up. And they covered up reactor 3 and 4 and pretended that they got the fuel out of the pool. Of course, this is insane suggestion. And that in 2013, the media was claiming they were at the top of the building. So don't think for a second that they're not going to lie about certain facets of the earthquake. Which brings us to our poll. Would Japan authorities sacrifice thousands of earthquake victims to prop up the nuclear power plant's image? And then there's only one obvious answer, and that's yes. And just to give you context, even today they'll claim nobody actually died because of Fukushima nuclear meltdowns. But if you look at the cancer registry in the first year, 2012, was 865,000 extra cancers. And not everybody got health care. Not everybody was diagnosed. Cancer isn't the only adverse side effect from ingesting radioactive fallout. And if you're on planet Earth, then you ingested radioactive fallout. Now, the official story, I'll just let this model. This is French's model of 1 to 10 million atoms per cubic meter of air. Remember, they picked up 30 million one-ton bags of radiation. That the food was banned in the 14 prefectures. And so the current earthquake is quite concerning, and we're just going to jump right into it. Just touch on last night's video for 1 second. We got a lot to get through here tonight. So last night when the video was over, in your top left-hand corner, I had 7 views. I actually had 110 views and 59 peak. I had 44 thumbs up, but I only had 7 views. And we had 47 votes, but officially only had 7 views. So they're suppressing my numbers. They've been doing this for quite a while because we talk about Fukushima nuclear meltdown. And currently they're trying to prop up the nuclear industry. And so we're right into the headlines as we speak here right now. Hi, everybody. Hugs for everybody. Hi, Dana, Richard, and Don, everybody. So this was a 7 out of 7. That's admitted now officially in the media. They're admitting that it's a 7 out of 7 scale earthquake on the Shindu scale. And so you got to multiply it by 1.428 to get the international scale. Okay, let's go through the news. We got absurd, ridiculous amount of pictures that really tell the story. I mean, we're talking in one community alone around 5,000 houses, buildings, 90% of them were destroyed. And they're not that far from the current nuclear plants on that side of the coastline. I'm going to show you where they're to. So 7.6 magnitude quake but it was a 7.7 on the Japanese scale. Do you see what they're up to? And so when they say it's triggered a tsunami warning, they actually had a tsunami. It wasn't a big tsunami, but it certainly done damage. And we got some footage of that coming up. There was 100,000 people evacuated. And they had warnings all the way to Hokkaido, which is the most northerly island, which is quite a long ways away. Fukushima melted reactors are much, much closer, not even half the distance. Can once again spark public concern about the safety of nuclear power in an earthquake-prone country at a time when the Prime Minister plans to revamp its use as part of a green transformation. Nuclear is the most resource-intensive industry. You can't have a nuclear power plant without 2 gas, oil, and coal plants combined, at least 2, full-size, dedicated to the nuclear plant. It can't run on its own energy. And so they covered it up and they sacrificed thousands and thousands and thousands of victims. Many people died, so nuclear industry didn't get a black eye. And the current reactor and fuel storage they're going to open up is basically within eyesight. If you're on a mountain, you can see where this earthquake took place. So the Shika nuclear plant had to get transformers replaced, apparently, that let smoke out, but allegedly they said it didn't set fire because of a fire suppression system that they had, or otherwise there would have been a fire. We know somebody died in Shika, for sure. We know there was a lot of damage way past Shika, way past the nuclear power plant. Huge damage where many people died. The Nuclear Regulation Authority, which is beholden to the nuclear industry itself, reported that the Shika plant workers heard what sounded like an explosion, smelled something burning near a transformer. Why be so vague? That received, if you can tell that much of the story, then you don't need to be vague, right? You're aware of what actually happened. This is not difficult subject for them to get right. They're the media. For use in the number 2 reactor, staff checking the area discovered the fire extinguishing system had been activated. In other words, it put out a fire. Why not just say the system put out a fire? Why dance around the actual documentation itself? At the Tokyo Electric Power Company's Kishida Wakasaki Kaiwa nuclear power station, Niigata Prefecture, home to 7 nuclear reactors were offline before the quake, confirmed that the water from the spent fuel pool spilled over due to the earthquake. What's that? What are they talking about? Water spilled over. If the water, like the water they're talking about, is at the top of the buildings, the fuel pools are at the very top of these buildings, which are 190 feet tall. They're 65 meters tall, 19 stories tall, and they're 50 meters wide, 150 feet wide. The fuel pools are actually at the very top of the building, so that building had to sway significantly. Therefore, that's like it's hard to comprehend it, but the fuel pools are not filled all the way to the top. So for the water to spill means that plant is in jeopardy as we speak. And who knows what kind of damage, because if you can roll the building that much that you would spill the water, you can crack the pool too. If those pool drains, you're going to have a catastrophic event that will contaminate the entire planet again. So the fuel pools, by the way, need about 120,000 liters each day. If there's 7 reactors, that means there's 14 fuel pools. Each reactor has 2 fuel pools, which means there's 14 fuel pools. And because you don't have a repository in Japan, the fuel pools are stuffed with 4 decades of reactor cores, which is in the stupidest spot conceivable if you want a meltdown. At the Tokyo Electric Power Companies, we just done that one. Water spilled over from the fuel pool. And so I couldn't get any more information on that. But over the next week, what we'll see is documentation of that showing up. That's quite the revelation on its own, because it means you can never start these plants up, which is part of the story of today, where they just announced they're going to be starting up some of these reactors. That there was no problem that there's 11 reactors in Mihama. There's multiple reactors. These are quite far away, these other ones we're talking about. Okay. The prefecture has confirmed the death of 20 people in Suzu, which is not that far from another reactor, and 1 in Shika, which is another nuclear power plant that they were planning on bringing online, right? Just a couple of days ago, they started announcing it, and today it was actually announced. I'll get to that hopefully right in a moment. 4 houses fall over along a road in Japan's, and so the damage, oh my goodness, like yesterday, they were so vague, they were showing old pictures. And so you got houses that have rolled over. This was a massive earthquake. I'm not laughing, that's the gallows laugh. This was an unbelievable earthquake. The earth shifted dramatically and through 6 prefectures by the looks of it. Fire spread over a wide area, and we're talking several hundred homes and businesses were burnt. Search and rescue couldn't get in there because the bridges are torn apart, roads, highways are split apart and split in 2. The damage you're going to see coming up. We're going to get into the pictures quite shortly. After Japan's earthquake in Wajima, Ishikawa prefectures, 57 dead? 57. And so I'm really confused about, we covered it a lot last night about that part of the confusion. The media has access to a lot of this information. Well, let's get through the show here. Japan hit by 155 earthquakes in a day. We know it's over, I got another headline here with over 200 earthquakes. Now, you got to take into consideration that this could lead to another massive earthquake, because you're talking about 200 aftershocks in just 24 hours. That's huge numbers. That's a significant. It most likely means we're going to have a couple of more serious earthquakes this week in the same area, or somewhere else along the fault line itself. Because you're talking about 2 tectonic plates, right, that are releasing. And so they're overlapped, and then they release, and that displaces a huge amount of the earth, causes a massive. And so the earthquake, because it's 6 prefectures with severe damage that we're seeing and shaking, then that's something we got to be concerned about, because as you'll see coming up, comes as the nation is split. Japan's earthquake comes as the nation split. Nation is split. No one's the people in Japan hate nuclear. The politicians are the only ones that are promoting nuclear. The country's not, the population. There's no referendum where they're going to see if you have a referendum across Japan, maybe 30% will call for nuclear. But that's because takes a lot of corporations to make a nuclear power plant work. It's around 1 million altogether. So there's a lot of people with a lot of evil intentions that make their living during this misery machine. Okay, Japan's earthquake comes as the nation split over nuclear plants post-Fukushima. And all the pictures are like right out of hell. My goodness, wait till you see the pictures we got. They're right out of hell. Acting Deputy World News Editor. And like these so-called journalists who've been stabbing us in the back relentlessly for 12 years over Fukushima, you give these people these titles that are unwarranted, that they don't deserve any of these accolades like that. Japan's Nuclear Regulation Authority said no irregularities have been seen at nuclear power stations along the Sea of Japan, which is between South Korea, North Korea, and Russia and Japan, right, on the west side, which includes 5 active reactors at the Kansai Electric Power Onai and the Takahama plant in Fukai Prefecture, which is quite that's the long distance. So the peninsula at the very top up there where it says Japan, that's where the earthquake is too. Why are they using those? There's plants much closer than that, as you'll see coming up. So it's very interesting because there's plants at right over there, and there's another plants right here. So why are they directing to the ones really far away? Fukushima caused a lot of damage in the past and was of great concern domestically, internationally. And areas around the plant are still radioactive. Well, no, Japan is still radioactive. Like, the food was banned in 14 prefectures by 55 countries for a decade. That extends far, far away from the plant that they acknowledge is incredibly radioactive. But we covered the whole country for 12 years. The whole country is radioactive. People are living in denial, and they don't seem to realize how this impacts their health and their loved ones and their children and their friends and their families. How radiation absolutely devastates the insects, the birds, the animals, the mammals worldwide. These plumes are like invisible snowstorms that covers the planet and never goes away. So this was today, World Nuclear News, which is a lobbying group. The NRA lifts a ban on Kashiwachaki Karakwa fuel. Now I know I butchered the name. Sue me. Fuel activities, which is right here, and the earthquake is over there. But the earthquake done damage up there in Nagata, serious damage, way past the nuclear power plant, which they said fuel or water from the fuel pool, and every liter of water in that fuel pool is incredibly radioactive because the fuel is still splitting atoms. That's why nuclear waste is so dangerous. It's still splitting atoms. Those atoms are released into the environment because there's no containment over the fuel pools. There's around 1,000 fuel pools worldwide, and all of these facilities are surrounded by farms, so it's easier to poison you. But that's quite startling that here's the Nuclear Regulatory Agency in Japan, which was created post-Fukushima, by the way. And a meeting on the 27th of December to lift administration orders imposed on Tokyo Electric Power Company, which shouldn't exist, which was nationalized right away anyway. But the reason that Tokyo Electric Power Company exists is so you don't blame the nuclear industry. Tokyo Electric Power Company can go bankrupt and then takes all the blame with them. That's what they're planning on doing if the blowback shows up. But it looks like the population is thoroughly asleep. You can see the farmlands in the background, of course. That prohibit the company from moving nuclear fuel or loading it into the reactors at 7-unit nuclear plant, which they admit tonight in this evening story that waters last night of the 2011 tsunami, the 2011 earthquake. I've never seen them do that before. We've covered many, many earthquakes in Japan. We've never seen them do that before. That's quite alarming. So Nagata had serious damage, injuries, that far past that. Far past it. Had serious damage and injuries. So they're talking about loading fuel at a place where there's current there's a huge fault line right there. Yesterday, I showed the maps of that yesterday, right? Let's get back into this here now. Fires hit the quake zone is 55 were killed. I think the number is 57 confirmed, but they still haven't got access. There's places still cut off that you can't get in there. And the fire, let's go through this. So we got some headlines, and then we got all kinds of pictures and pictures and pictures and pictures. Headlines and pictures. Rescue effort continued. Japan after 55 were killed. People were killed in a powerful earthquake that hit the country on New Year's Day. Homes collapsed, buildings caught fire, roads were extensively damaged. They were deformed. They were completely impassable, hindering the work of rescue services. The military could have flew everybody in if they really wanted to help them. They didn't want the world to see until they had a control of the media. The epicenter of the 7.6 quake, which we know was much higher than that, way higher than that. On the Japanese scale was a 7 out of 7. The epicenter of the 7.6 quake was the Noto Peninsula in central Japan. The peninsula. The epicenter was the peninsula. So they're very vague about where the earthquake actually took place. We covered last night what they're saying, but there's very few of them actually acknowledging where it took place. Apparently this took place on land, but there are suggestions it took place in the ocean. But again, they're still so vague, we haven't got a definitive answer over 36 hours later. Some 3,000 rescuers were trying to reach parts of the Noto Peninsula, and many places still not reached today. Helicopter surveys showed many fires, widespread damage to buildings and infrastructures. And the city of Wajima, on the northern tip of Noto, had been cut off from land routes. And they estimated the 5,000 houses there, 90% of them were destroyed. Not damaged, but destroyed. I mean, that is stunning. And when I say destroyed, look at this house right here. It went to matchsticks. My goodness, I mean, the house exploded. It's just, really, right? That's really, I can honestly say I've never seen an earthquake do something like that before. Excuse me, I just had my cup of tea there. I forgot to turn the mic off. Dina. Yeah, let's zoom back in on these pictures. We got an absurd hundreds of pictures to get to. That really tell the story. The pictures, though, because the media is just going to cut. It's not going to tell you the truth. Let's put it that way. So if that was your house, big beautiful house, like if that was your house, that'd be bad enough, right? Obviously. But if that was your house, holy smokes, my heart goes out to the victims. And look at the roof's got deformed. Look at this deforming. And you can see damage to the building itself. More damage alongside that particular house. They warn people to be alert for more earthquakes of intensity of up to a 7 in the coming weeks. Now, see, because Japan uses their own scale, which means 7 out of 7 on their scale, which is 10 out of 10 on the Richter scale. And Ishikawa is 155 kilometers, 96 miles south of the Noto Peninsula, experienced a 4.9 quake on today in the afternoon. Now, we don't know if that's a 4.9 on the international scale, which is 1.428. You have to multiply their scale, the Japanese scale, the Shinto scale, by 1.428. So multiply 4.9 by 1.428 just to be safe, because that's what you should do. And with 200 aftershocks, that actually warrants you doing that. The major tsunami warnings put up by the Japanese government on Monday were later downgraded. By Tuesday, all tsunami advisories were lifted along the Sea of Japan, meaning there was no longer a risk of such event. But there was an event. There was a tsunami. We got pictures of that coming up later. 82-year-old resident of Nadano, Toshido told the BBC that his wooden home had partially collapsed, and despite living through multiple earthquakes, he'd never experienced one of this magnitude before. Yeah, it was a 7 on a 7 scale. And that's a roof broken off by the looks of it, or burnt off. I can't remember. A Japanese airplane caught fire on Tuesday also, as it collided with a Coast Guard aircraft on the way to provide earthquake relief. The pilot survived on the Coast Guard plane. The 5 crew died. My heart goes out to their families. And the other plane had almost 400 people on it. And they were landing, and they hit. So it's sad, very sad stuff. 5 people on board the Coast Guard plane known to have died, but the Japan's airline plane of 379 passengers and crew managed to escape. The plane eventually burnt right to the ground. And Japan is one of the most seismically active nations on Earth, owing to the location on the so-called Pacific Ring of Fire, where many tectonic plates meet. So that's a very nasty spot to put a nuclear power plant, where you have a 3,000-year legacy of tsunamis, and big ones at that, and 3,000 legacy of 1,000 earthquakes a year. Why would you build a nuclear power plant and put the fuel pools on top of the reactor cores on top of that? I got a froggy in my throat. Japan searches survivor after earthquake kills, well, now we know it's 57. And it's probably gone up by the time we went live here tonight. And we're getting up close to where all the pictures are. And it just popped the cement out of the buildings. Look at this. And this is really old buildings. Very old buildings. And that area is known to have earthquakes. And so there's probably been damaged before. But that's significant what we're seeing. It toppled buildings. One building was over 7 stories. But wait till you see what's coming up in the pictures in a little tiny bit. So the death toll is actually, by the way, consider liking, subscribe, and notifying. Join the club here of reality. Let's get through these headlines, and then we can get into a bunch of pictures. A fire in the heart of the city, which is Noto, right? Peninsula. What's the name of that city? We'll get to it. A fire in the heart of the city after the quake engulfed about 200 homes and shops. My goodness. About 195 miles northwest of Tokyo, and Fukushima is much closer, with Japan dispatching about 1,000 troops along with equipment from the self-defense forces to help in rescue efforts. Tuesday afternoon, there have been 120 appeals for rescues from collapsed buildings. Doesn't mean everybody's able to, because the phones are down in many places, right? They also urge people to refrain from spreading false information about damage. The quake didn't affect the safety of the nearby nuclear plant. Think of that statement that Arikans that they do every single earthquake. Every single earthquake, the first thing to come out is protect the nuclear industry's image. Every single quake, even if it's a small one, there was no damage to any nuclear power plants and around Japan, the nuclear wasteland. Nearby, the quake didn't affect the safety of the nearby. If it's nearby, the safety was affected. And if you lose power to these things, are dependent upon external power. If you lose power, they melt down in about an hour after running. The mayor of Suzu, closest to the epicentre of the quake, said as many as 1,000 homes in the city may have been destroyed. 1,000 homes, but we got more reports now that out of the 5,000 homes and businesses, 90% of them were completely destroyed. The peninsula is not a major industrial center, but it actually is. I guess it's not a major industrial center, but it has major companies there that are very important, like the semiconductor manufacturing. One has 13 plants making electronic components in that whole area. And so there's many different places. Train service suspended, power plants halted operations. Roads and airport runways closed due to damage. Mobile phones were affected. And video from the region shows cracks ripping through the streets cracked houses, one 7-story building resting on its side after it was tipped over by the quake. They estimate there's 100 people inside of that building they still haven't rescued, which is, you can see it down there, which is that building up right there. So let's get into some of these pictures, and so we can start to wrap our mind around it. This is a video where you can see everything swaying. So you can see how the curtains are swaying sideways up there. The TVs, the screens, the monitors are getting ready to fall off, obviously. We've all seen depictions of that. But when you see the curtains, you see the swing on the curtain right there to your left? And now it's back in the center again. So that's significant for a building to swing. The building is causing the curtain to swing sideways. That gives you some context. Again, we're getting a lot of grainy footage out of here, but look at the damage. Holy smokes. It's like it blew up, isn't it, when you see that kind of footage? But this burned area, holy, they can't get any rescues in there whatsoever, so everything just burnt. And there's a lot of apartment blocks have burnt. There's thousands of homes have burnt, thousands. Yeah, there's around 100 people, they say, trapped inside of this building. Let's keep going here. We got lots of great stuff coming up. You can see whole cities are starting to burn. This was up in the far ground up there. That's where the passenger plane with 379 people on board was landing and hit a Coast Guard airplane that was getting ready to take off. Very heartbreaking stuff. But you see all these communities are burning to a crisp. They got no water. They got no electricity. And the survivors' biggest complaint right now is fresh water. Yeah, that's such a heartbreaking. The Coast Guard was getting ready to bring supplies to the victims. There is some footage. We got some footage of people inside the plane. Yeah, that's right here. The plane started filling up with smoke. It's just inconceivable that they got off the plane when you see the results of what the plane looked like after. They were very lucky to survive it. Just a 1 second difference, it could have been a 100% worse tragedy. It's already obviously a tragedy. A lot of these planes were bringing in pets too, so they would have died. Severe damage, but thank goodness everybody got off the plane. Oh, that's a professor? Scumbag. We don't like professors around here very much. There's some good ones out there. But 99.9% of them are scumbags for the industry. It's really something. There you go. Yeah, that's crazy. And the media was saying how well the plane done, how it held up, and everybody was able to get off the plane. It burnt pretty quick, so they're getting off the plane now. Everybody's aware of what you're supposed to do, right? And the plane collapsed, of course, burnt right to the ground. The current puppet of Japan, doesn't matter. They're all the same, right? They don't call the shots. They're just for getting pictures taken, those guys. So yeah, there's 100 people still missing from that building. And they're going in the building looking for survivors. If they haven't located the 100 by now, guess what? It's going to be just unbelievable heartbreak. Look how much the country was torn apart. This is stunning. Look at this, how highways snapping right off. And she's cleaning up after an earthquake, obviously. They just had another earthquake. She just finished rebuilding. She said, I can't do it again. And we should think that way for the nuclear power plants. Like, nuclear power plants didn't melt down as far as we know. We don't know if that's true or not because the media is very secretive, as I showed you at the beginning. They probably won't tell you if there is a meltdown because that will be the end of the nuclear industry, right? They can't survive another meltdown. And they're already falling apart, right? You know, last year, 2023, was 440 gigawatts of new electricity coming online of renewables. A total after 80 years for nuclear is 365 gigawatts. So renewables in a lousy 12 months beat nuclear's 80-year legacy. She's like, no, I can't rebuild this place again. And so buildings just fell apart. This is a significant accident where they're about to relaunch more nuclear power plants within a short distance, and where places far past these plants were severely damaged. The plane fire was really something. So I'm going to show you another lie that the nuclear industry told in 2018 about an earthquake, just so you can appreciate how this industry actually works. Because they had a nuclear power plant not very far from this earthquake. Have you ever seen anything like this before? This was in Hokkaido, which is the most northerly islands of Japan. And you can see the mountains lost all their payloads on all sides with landslides. We've never seen nothing like that before. In 2018, so the pictures in the story you're going to show you for the next couple of minutes are 2018. They got nothing to do with today. I just want to make sure people don't get confused. 22,000 people were involved in rescue efforts. And they had a 6.6 quake. A magnitude 6.6 quake, right? But a 6.6 quake doesn't drop the payloads in all your mountains. You get what I mean. But it was actually a 6.7 on a maximum intensity scale of 7 on the Shindo scale. And when you do the mathematics on that, that's a 9.5 earthquake. And the one they had yesterday was a 10 out of a 10 earthquake. So they had 130 aftershocks with Hokkaido. This is 2000, and if you're just joining us, we're just showing an example for a few minutes from 2018. They had 130 aftershocks. This one already had the emit to 200 aftershocks. It registered a 6.7 on a maximum intensity scale of 7. A 6.7. So normally they go a 6, a 6.5, and then a 7. They don't actually do in between it. The Shindo scale doesn't. Right? So if it's a 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, right? And that's how that scale works. You don't do like 6.1, 6.2, 6.3. So what you do is you take 7 divided into 10 for the Richter scale, and you get 1.428. So you take the 1.428, multiply it by 6.7. And that was the Hokkaido, what we're talking about right now. We're just going to show you some pictures. Now, it's because there was a nuclear plant, the Tomari nuclear power plant was running. And you see where the X is to? Well, look where the nuclear power plant was to. And so they covered that story up in 2018. Does any of this look familiar to you? Did you see any of this before? Have you ever seen the payloads of every mountain on each side of the mountains fall? Have you ever seen a mountain do that? A single mountain? Have you ever seen all the mountains do that before? So they called it a 6.6. The international media said it was a 6.6. And I actually missed it when it happened because it was a 6.6. And then luck would have it, I looked down the rabbit hole and said, oh my goodness, what do we got going on here? And so when you look at the bottom of these mountains, it's hard to appreciate, because you can see structures behind me. It's hard to appreciate it. So when you look at the mountains losing all their payloads and landslides, it's difficult to put it in the perspective of how big we're talking about it. And we've never seen that worldwide before. And they lost power to 4 million people, including that nuclear power supply. And again, they buried up whatever happened there. They managed to cover that up. So look at this from 2018. This was a 6.7, but the media was told, like you were told, I was told, was a 6.6. It was actually a 7 out of 7, right? Anything that can shake the mountains to lose their entire payloads, that's a 7.7. And so to just the bottom of one of these mountains, you can see how big it actually looks. So when you look at the bigger picture of the mountains, all the mountains losing their payhold from this high shot, it doesn't really do it justice. But okay, let's get back into today's stories. The story I just showed you was 2018, and I want to show you that because I want you to see how they covered up a serious nuclear event or a serious earthquake just a few years ago. How they downplayed it, and they're doing the same thing today. And that's why we got a poll tonight. Would Japan's authorities sacrifice thousands of earthquake victims to prop up the nuclear power industry? Images. And then the proper answer is, but of course. Okay, here we go again. Let's get after it. And we got lots more pictures right away, too. Japan's earthquake relief plane hit passenger jet, killing 5 people in Tokyo. So this was in Tokyo. Rescuers in Japan are struggling to reach coastal areas where many are feared trapped under collapsed buildings. And they're freezing temperatures, so my heart is broken for these victims. After the powerful earthquake on New Year's Day. Powerful earthquake? It was a devastating earthquake. At least 55 people known to die. Now we think it's 57. And we know it's a lot more that they haven't found yet. After initial 7.6 magnitude earthquake. Again, I'd be very, very, very cautious in believing their narrative of the magnitude of the earthquake. Deadliest to hit the country in 8 years, struck the Noto Peninsula. No, they had an earthquake last year in front of Fukushima, 35 miles off the coastline, that ended up damaging 5,500 schools. Not counting all the other buildings, because obviously the earthquake doesn't just attack schools. It was over $5 billion in just the first month and a half of applications from insurance companies. 5 people on board the Coast Guard jet died. We covered that. But everyone on the passenger aircraft managed to get out safely. And my heart goes out to those loved ones. At least 48 did as Japan earthquake causes widespread destruction. I was just grabbing headlines, remember? Because that's the thing, when you're trying to cover these stories, you got to get on top of it. You got to grab everything and then sort through it after. And so a lot of times I'll click it even though I know I got to. Here's another headline, not 48, but 55, rises to 55. But look at the damage. Where's all the rescuers? They haven't made it there yet, see? So this place burnt, and it literally had no chance. Who knows how many people died in this incinerator. You can imagine 200 houses and businesses burning. Like, there's no way you can get near something that big, that kind of magnitude, that much energy, that much heat, that much flames, that much smoke. And very toxic smoke, a lot of it, right? So there was no way to get in and rescue any of the victims. So it's very sad stuff. And I mean, my goodness. Again, right now we're still getting grainy stuff, right? We're still getting grainy pictures. We're still getting grainy videos. But you can see a firefighter right there. But look at the damage. Just burned unmitigated. Rescue teams struggling in freezing temperatures reach coastal areas where many of the feared traps under possibly thousands of destroyed homes. Thousands. In fact, in Suzu, a town of about 5,000 households. Households, I was going to say households. What the hell is a household, Dana? Send your hate mail to Dana at Durnford. Near the quake's epicenter, 90% of the houses may have been destroyed, according to the mayor. 90% of the buildings at 5,000. 5,000 households. Households. I done it again. Households. What the hell is a household? Sorry, I'm not trying to. There's nothing funny. Oh, I'm funny, but the story's not funny. That's real. The situation is catastrophic. I suppose your whole city burnt down, except for a few buildings. That definitely meets the. And here we go. The quake with a preliminary magnitude. Again, don't trust the government. Don't trust your media, for goodness sakes. Don't be a sucker. A 7.6 struck on Monday afternoon, and I would go check even that just to be sure, because you just can't trust media. prompting people in western coastal areas to flee to higher ground. Oh, wait for it. Prompting people in coastal areas to flee to higher ground as a tsunami waves swept cars and houses into the ocean. And there was a tsunami. We got pictures of it coming up. It wasn't a big one, but, at 400 miles per hour, even like a 4 or 5 centimeters tsunami, when it hits the coastline, it starts rising up because it's gathering water and energy. It's traveling at over 400 miles per hour. And so it doesn't sound like it's only, a few centimeters tall. Yeah, but when it gets to shallow water, if you're down on the beach, you're going to get hurt. Got a big frog in my throat tonight again. As tsunami waves, and I didn't bring my hydrogen peroxide with me. As tsunami waves, because I just sprayed that on the jugular vein, that'll clear up my throat right away. That'll clear up your flu right away. Just spray it on your jugular veins, your throat, and hydrogen peroxide will pretty well gets absorbed in your blood. That's really good for killing bacteria and fungus and viruses and pathogens. Very good at it. And it's just oxygen, right? You're just oxygenating your body, so it can't hurt you. And you can never get enough oxygen in context of, because the world has lost a big production oxygen producers on the planet like the phytoplankton due to Fukushima. As tsunami waves swept cars and houses out into the water. Well, that's the first time I've seen them acknowledge it, but we don't got video of it. About 200 tremors have been detected since the first hit on Monday from the earthquake. 200 tremors, which are earthquakes, 200 earthquakes. And normally they call it earthquakes, now they're calling it tremors. They're even calling, and we've seen that recently this year, or since 2023, they start to use that word instead of earthquakes because they're trying to promote nuclear, and the word nuclear and earthquakes don't really go together too good. Which warned that more strong shocks, aka earthquakes, could get hit in coming days. About 300 rescuers were finding it difficult to reach the northern tip of the peninsula, where helicopter surveys discovered many fires, widespread damage to buildings and infrastructure. That's an understatement. We got a bunch of pictures coming up, and 1, 2, 3, 4 more clicks or something. Each area experienced around 2,000 quakes that can be felt. More than 500 people were stranded in the airport that was closed to cracks in the runway, access roads, and damage to the terminal building, so they can't land there unless it's helicopters. And authorities have confirmed 55 deaths. And now I think it's 57. It probably rose since we started. He said, I never experienced a quake that powerful, 71-year-old man. It all happened in the blink of an eye. She said, standing next to the crushed car on a road littered with debris and mud that oozed out from the crack, which is liquefaction. And you can see, I kind of showed you those pictures. Okay, 24 hours in pictures. And we got a whole bunch of pictures to get through now. The 2nd of January, 2024. And that was the plane. And they were so lucky to get off that plane, my goodness. Okay, so let's run through these pictures. So this house just completely collapsed. When I see collapse like that, the only way to describe it, because you see how it just like matchsticks, everything just popped apart. That tells you it was swaying dramatically. The only thing holding the house up is the car. That car was near the house, would have collapsed the rest of the way, right? And now we've seen buildings like this in Taiwan. Taiwan's another place that shouldn't have nuclear power plants, right? They're also on major fault lines. But that is really something. Everything burnt to the ground. There's around 200 homes. But now the truth is I think it's around 4,500 homes, not counting businesses, that burnt to the ground. That is unbelievable. And they would have been aware of that. They would have had satellite pictures at daylight, right? Any daylight, they would have got the pictures right away. Their technology's moved dramatically. And they still can't get, they don't have power. They still can't turn on the main, people are still suffering from loss of water. This is extraordinary, this is definitely the most powerful quake they've felt in recent history. Or that building would have filled before that, most likely, right? And so here's some stuff from the tsunami. This is actually from yesterday. I'll duck out of the way here. And so there was a tsunami big enough to throw boats up on the wharfs. You see the building crushed alongside of it from water. You see all those, see that truck there? And now let's zoom around a little tiny bit. I'll get it together in a second. Give me a second. So see that truck damaged? There's a boat there in the water right in front of it. Right, you can see the boat upside down. You see that truck? That's a crane truck by the looks of it, is it? Then the boat is damaged. Looks like the wharf was swept clean. You can see the damage on the wharf itself. Looks like the wharf collapsed. So it looks like the earthquake might have just damaged not just the tsunami, but it looks like the earthquake might have also. Actually, there's two boats upside down. There's two boats up on dry. You can see the building alongside the boat. I'll bring it up better shot for you here in a second. Once I get my act together, bear with me. Little trigger happy here today. You can see this building collapsed right there. So they did have a tsunami, my goodness. That building collapsed. The other building, you can see the ocean went right through it. So now we got three boats. We got three boats washed up, two boats upside down. Let's zoom back out. You can see damage up in the top corner. Let's just zoom over there for a second. Yeah. Looks like some of them boats there are damaged. You can see four boats huddled together, jammed together. Yeah, there's a boat with the bow sticking out of the water up there. And so why were they showing? They would have had access to some of this footage. Why did they show us all the fake pictures in the media yesterday from 2011? Well, they weren't fake, but they were 2011. And I'm not sure how far the tsunami. It wasn't considered a big tsunami, but it was very fast. Obviously, it was big enough to destroy the building. It was big enough to throw the boats up on the dock. It was big enough to sink the boats. Why did it take so long for that story to come out? And you can see damage. You can see the. Let me zoom in for you because it's hard to. And I don't know why we don't have more people telling the story. But you see that piece of the building up right there? You can see the building destroyed, pieces of building destroyed here. Looks like that car up there is not functional. Again, we got grainy footage. That's all that's coming out right now. But that tsunami debris has pushed stuff all the way up there. We got really good footage coming up too, really clear stuff. And so I'm not sure because it's an aerial footage. Now this is where the fire damage, this is Koto. Wajima or something, I forget the name of that city. Total, it was around 4,500 buildings. Noto Peninsula, right at the top of where that burnt to a crisp. You can imagine thousands of buildings on fire. You're not going to get close to it. It probably looked like Hiroshima in World War II when the Americans, United Nations and the Americans, well, actually, I don't think it was United Nations, League of Nations back then, went in and the fire bombed Tokyo, right? Before they dropped Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And so that was they had a tsunami. That was a real tsunami. So I'm expecting more tsunamis in the next few days. I'm expecting a bigger earthquake behind this one. I think this was a precursor, and there are a few people that are suggesting that. I'm not the only one, but I would have suggested it anyway because we cover this regularly, right? And so that was significant damage. That's advertisement. At least 50 dead after a monster Japan earthquake. That's the proper way to describe the earthquake, as a monster earthquake. I definitely agree with a monster earthquake. And so that's the poll we got tonight. Would Japan, and oh, that is it. Would Japan's authorities sacrifice thousands of earthquake victims to prop up the nuclear power plant's image? And that's a 100% roger that. The main island of Honshu triggered tsunami waves more than a meter high, toppled houses, caused major fire, tore apart roads on the Noto Peninsula. The destruction included buildings damaged by fire, houses flattened. We think it's around 4,500 houses that they admit to now. Fishing boats sunk or washed ashore, and highways hit by landslides. I couldn't find the pictures of the landslides. The way 2024 started will be etched into her memory forever. After what she called a long and violent earthquake on Monday, it was such a powerful jolt. Long and violent. And Tokyo was rocking for about 2 minutes, right? So imagine how bad Fukushima was. The death toll at 50 was now 57 when I went live. The last number I seen, I think it was an hour before I went live, was the last time I checked. The number was expected to rise as rescuers combed through the rubble. Well, it's not expected, it's guaranteed. So they had a few more aftershocks, and the media would go, please take deep breaths and check for fires in their kitchens. Yeah. And here was another earthquake. This one they're talking about. At that point, they're admitting to 150. Now they're using the word tremors instead of earthquakes. They only started doing that in 2023. And so that part of the shrine there in the right-hand side, I'm not sure if it'll show in the video, but let's go back and do that one more time. That almost falls over. People can't stand up. It doesn't really show. These people couldn't stand up. Everybody had to sit down because the earthquake was so bad. We'll go back to this guy. It was such a powerful jolt. He says the same thing. I don't think I've experienced anything like it before. It went on really long. And Japan issued the first major tsunami alert since the 2011 disaster. And I don't know if this picture is from 2011 or from recent. So this was, man, he's got some haircut. He should let somebody else besides his mommy cut his hair, shouldn't he? People near the shoreline and riverbanks, please evacuate to higher grounds. I smurfed up. I'll get him again coming up here. There we go. We are currently observing a large tsunami. We don't have footage of a large tsunami. We do have footage of some tsunamis going up rivers. People near the shorelines and riverbanks, please evacuate to higher ground. That was official announcements. Tsunami waves of, now I showed you pictures that it was definitely, you can see it. So let's bring up, let me bring it back into that other mode here. I'll get in the picture. Bear with me. So you can see the tsunami up there. Let me go backwards. Right, you see the tsunami hitting? So let's just roll through that. I can zoom in a bit more. You can see the tsunami hitting the landmass. I'm probably too close now. Let me go back a couple of pictures. So that's definitely a tsunami. Look at this filler, right? You can see it up there. Let me do that again for you. Yeah, that's a tsunami. Fire engulfed buildings and power lines broke. Yeah, well, they say around 4,500 buildings destroyed. Well, like a tremor and a quake, Gabriel, are basically the same thing, but it's more appropriate to describe, like a tremor is typically like a 1, 2, 3 magnitude earthquake, whereas an earthquake is typically 4 and above, right? That's how I see it. I don't know if I'm correct in saying it, but I'm pretty sure that's how it works, actually. And it's freezing temperatures. You can see the cars on the roads were rocking, like violent rocking when you watch any of the videos. I don't play the videos because the industry will take your video and your site down if you start using videos. So you can't justify. And you can see offices being torn apart. There was actually footage of that. And this basement, I figured for sure the basement was going to collapse. It's hard to appreciate. You should see the violence of the basement. It doesn't really show right there. Buildings collapsed all over the place. And you couldn't stand up during the earthquake, which meant it was super high earthquake. When you can't stand up, you're way up there. This is the subways. The subways got flooded by water. And this was one of the tsunamis coming up a river. And if that breaches the river, because it's coming at such a high speed, and other earthquakes, and so up there again you can see. I wasn't zoomed out all the way. My apologies, everybody. So that's the tsunami. That's more footage. It's very grainy footage, but that's definitely a tsunami coming in. Oh, let me go backwards. You can see the ground, major cracks in the ground. Buildings collapsing. Complete collapse of buildings that have been there for many, many decades. And everybody seems to agree this was the worst earthquake they've ever felt in this area. And there's the tectonic plates. There's two tectonic plates are meeting right off that coastline. But we still haven't got. One thing the media is not reporting on is where the earthquake actually physically happened. They're not showing you. And the depictions they are showing you are from a far away shot, almost like a satellite shot. But when you zoom in, it always seems to show it on land. And if that's the case, then there's no way to put nuclear power plants in this environment. That was the thumbnail for tonight. Twitter X appears to restrict Japan's emergency alert accounts hours after the earthquake. So the emergency alert is posting Twitter posts constantly, right? But they got to pay money for that privilege, and they didn't pay enough money, so they were restricted to how many posts they can do. And apparently now Twitter is going to give them full access because they probably cost a whole lot of people their lives. So severely restricted, and it's done this automatically, right? This is like they're doing with me. Like when the video is over tonight, I'll be lucky if I got 10 views, despite the fact we had 60 people on the show almost the whole night. And normally these shows would be 160, 200, but I've been censored back because I cover the nuclear meltdowns in Japan. I do research expeditions and everything else, right? Leave the television, start running away. So the media was screaming at people to run away. Leave your television, just run. Run right now. And because there was, right? But the mainstream media in North America was showing pictures of the tsunami from 2011. I've never seen that before. And we're calling it, with captions on it, saying tsunami hits Japan. But that had nothing to do with it. So they're supposed to, in order to be able to have unlimited tweets each day, they got to pay $5,000 per month on Twitter. You got to pay $60,000 a year to get unlimited tweets on social media. And they're going to steal everybody's personal information and sell it. They're going to charge you $60,000 for the privilege. My apologies, dear. I know that bothers some people. Now they say public service will get free API access again. Yeah, we're just kidding about the 60,000. The insurance company Link Capital says earthquake is unlikely to have a significant cat bond impact because they're talking about the insurance policies. I'm like, what the hell is a cat bond? That's just most likely an acronym for something. But you got 4,500 homes that have either collapsed completely or destroyed or burnt to the ground. That's not significant. That's not significant. So even the insurance companies are trying to downplay it. And look how the road just tore apart. Does anybody really think this is the last earthquake they're going to see from this particular episode? They already had over 200 aftershocks. It burnt down everything. Let me get out of the way here. I think this is... So people were allowed to come into the shops and take stuff for free because there was no help able to get there. And the big corporations were saying, go ahead and go in there. You can see incredible destruction, incredible damage to the infrastructure. And the burning pictures are... When you see these burn pictures, I like to study these a lot more. I get suspicious sometimes of certain pictures because we know what the industry will take advantage of stuff like this and test out weapons. Well, no one's there to get the documentation. Let's give it a go, Georgie. You can see people in there, they're not actually looting because Japan, even if they were looting, Japan would say, no, we gave them permission because they wouldn't want that image, right? But in desperation, people will loot because if they got no choice, they got no choice. Photos show flattened buildings. Look at all these buildings collapsed. These are 100%. And if you look at that building, you can see all the steel supports they put under it. That's one of the most dangerous jobs you're ever going to get. Imagine you're the guy got to go and put steel supports under a collapsed building. That's insane, isn't it? We're almost through all of this. And then look at the damage from the fires. Look at all the huge apartment buildings. You can see all the big apartment buildings. It's crazy. And these houses were up high. They collapsed. The whole, as a landslide, right? Everything just slid out from underneath them. And this is damage, I'm assuming, from the tsunami. You can see a house in the water right there. You can see everything washed away along the coastline. All the houses washed away. Inland, you can see fire damage over there. Yeah, this was really something. Am I zoomed in or something? Hang on, my apologies. Let's do that again. And look at the damage. Boats flipped. There's several boats that are flipped upside down. Houses are completely tore off foundations and missing. All kinds of buildings destroyed. So for the insurance company to suggest that it's not a big deal, that's not a big deal. When was the last time you seen something like that, folks? That's look at all these not skyscrapers, but large buildings. These are huge, very expensive buildings. There was no way once this fire started raging, you got thousands of buildings burning. All that smoke, all that fire, all that heat, all that energy. There really wasn't any way. Look at the roads. Wow. And I don't think it's over. I hope it is. I pray it is. But I don't believe that this... I think this week we're going to see another major earthquake. And so one of the reasons I'm basing that upon is the tectonic plates. We know this is at the tectonic plates. We know they shifted dramatically, but the tsunami that they were expecting didn't happen. And so all that energy, it is going to happen at some point in the near future, right? If it doesn't happen this week, it will happen some point. It might be a couple of years or 10, 15 years, it's going to let go again, isn't it? And they got 2 nuclear power plants within the danger zone with multiple reactors and dozens of fuel pools. And that's a significant threat to humanity and the 8 million species. If that's not an apocalyptic video or a picture, what actually is? Right? Really, if that's not an apocalyptic yeah, my stream is showing an excellent connection. And so if people are not streaming properly, then it must be on your end. Just lower your resolution a little bit. Maybe that'll help you. And we're almost through all of this, another 7-8 minutes or something. And look at this kind of damage. It's just, the earth just shook. It was, and the fire, of course, look at these fires, my goodness. Unbelievable amount of heat. It's unbelievable how much heat takes to do something like that. And the only thing holding that building upright is that car. That car wasn't there, that building would have collapsed. Look at the damage to this bridge. It broke at all the joints. I guess that's how that works, is it? I was a little bit surprised. And you can see the road up there split. And you can see the roads up here split. And then look how the bridge is snapped. People trying to get out of there. And look at the difference in the height elevation. There's no way, even a 4x4 would have a hard time climbing over that. Now they can come in with a couple of dump truck loads of soil and dump it there, rocks and that, and just level it out, and you can get across that bridge into the community. So they can build a road in there pretty quick if they wanted to. And they should, right? Because these people got no help. And so you got locals going into the buildings looking for survivors. Total collapse, and that obviously these were caused by the lateral shaking. That blows me away. These kinds of, and that was a landslide, just tore the whole road. You can see the huge chunk of the road up there just peeled right off. And that really tells the story right there of how vulnerable those nuclear power plants are. If that happened, and like that will separate the water intakes, that kind of, that's incredible damage we're talking about there. So I went back and done these pictures over because I realized I didn't have this stuff up there. And so that might come in handy for some people. So the scarce commodity is water, fresh water. And of course, you won't last very long without water. You can live for months without food, but you can only live a few days without water. Water is your hero. Without water, you can't survive. Water is your best friend. Water is your most important friend to all species, to every species, bar nothing on this planet. Avoiding a catastrophe if Japan's Mount Fuji erupts after a major quake. Yeah, so if Mount Fuji erupts right now, what happens to all those people? They say Japan's nuclear plants are largely undamaged. By the way, South Korean opposition leader was stabbed in the throat. That seems to be a thing over in Japan. You can see all the attacks on people in South Korea, rather. Politicians. They don't like the politicians in South Korea, apparently. It's trendy to go out and stab him in the throat. He survived. He's going to be okay. He was the leader of the Democratic Party who only lost by 0.7% point. And the guy that beat him, which is the current president of South Korea, Yoon, he denied Fukushima had happened. He absolutely denied that Fukushima ever happened. I went into the city today, had to pick up equipment, tarp, and I needed another heater. I found a cheap heater in the city for the shed where The other equipment is too. So we need to keep heat in there sometimes. And then the tarp was 100 and whatever, I can't remember. So for 6 years, we've done research expeditions from Vancouver, British Columbia to Alaska on the ocean. And I went out there for months and months and months at a time. And we covered, there's 27,000 islands up there. And what we discovered on these research expeditions, well, I was by myself on the ocean for 4 to 5 months a year without coming home. And I went, just meandered through the 27,000 islands. And what I discovered was quite shocking, was that due to Fukushima radioactive fallout, we have wiped out the species. The pictures to your right are an extinction level, shows an extinction level event. Now, I used to dive this whole coastline as a commercial diver and harvest 20,000 of those purple urchins a day. And this is what I'm used to, those species right there. But as you can see, there's nothing left on the coastline. And there should be around 7,500 highly visible species in the tidal zones. And now there's just if you counted them out, maybe there's 100 species, but there's nothing healthy and there's nothing in quantity. So you can see the species to your left. That's actually exterminated. The species to your left have been exterminated by radioactive fallout from Japan. And we've done this for 6 years to see if the species would come back. The species to your left didn't recover. And so I've done the whole coastline by myself for years and years and years. A lot of that documentation is up at my website, thenuclearproctologist.org. And you can call me if you're interested in that at 709-589-4406. But I've done these research expeditions. Now we're on the east coast of Canada doing the same thing. And because this was a tropical rainforest we've done for 6 years, the species didn't recover. Those species didn't come back. And that's due to perpetual radioactive fallout. This is one of the models of the Xenon-133 from Fukushima. This model is 468 hours, 19.5 days of radioactive. The radioactive fallout covered the entire planet. And the species to your left are exterminated. You'll never take those species again. Pictures of those species again. This was a plutonium-239 dispersal based on 20 days up there and 21 days here. This is from TEPCO's number. Now remember, they're the same people that faked the fuel pool. Japan has faked, the American media faked. This is CNN, that's ABC Australia behind me. You got BBC up there in the corner, CBS. That's just a handful of the media that pretended they were in the nuclear fuel pools at the top of a building that don't even exist. Like the reason we didn't ban the food from 14 prefectures, half the country, for 10 years with 55 countries, because nothing happened. We banned it. And the proof that it happened is they picked up 30 million one-ton bags. And you can see how crazy they're harvesting food right alongside of one-ton bags. That's for sale. They're shipping that to your countries. So just so, in case you're not aware, I have done years and years and years of research. We're seeing an extinction event play out from perpetual radioactive fallout. Alrighty, so that's what I got for you. That's it. That's the show. That's the Unshalata. That's everything. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up. And come back and check the video when it's over and just bang your head when you see how many views I don't have. I might get 10 views when the video's over. But yet, I got 48 likes, but I might only have 10 views. I got 54 votes on the poll, but I'll probably only have 10 views when the show is over. Tomorrow, we're supposed to get some snow the next day, so I got to get out tomorrow. I bought a tarp. Every year I go to St. John's and pick up a tarp, right? And to cover up the research boat, that Zodiac I just showed you, because we'll be out doing more research this year. And, bear with me here. That's the end of the show. So we'll see everybody tomorrow night. And we'll get more information on this. And maybe we'll cover some news cycle tomorrow night. Nobody knows. I don't even know. You don't know. I don't know. Don't forget to give us a like. At least that much. Because we're not going to get no videos. Or no views on this video when the show is over. So So have a great night. We're going to end the poll on 55 votes. And so thank you, everybody. Hugs for everybody. Have a great night. My hugs and my hopes and dreams goes out to the victims in Japan. Have a great night, everybody.